The madman is one of the intriguing and recurring figures in the world. The madman has long captivated and stirred our collective imagination, embodying both the depths of chaos and the heights of wisdom. There have been madmen who have caused surprise and laughter since time immemorial. We worship insanity by seeing it in people and in the world, and by willingly displaying it in ourselves. It is one of the timeless archetypes, which we all inherit at birth. This archetype, often misunderstood and marginalized, serves as a mirror reflecting the contradictions and complexities within society and ourselves. The madman, the fool, the prophet who sees too much. He is the one who laughs while the world weeps, who destroys while others build, who speaks in riddles while society demands order. But what if his madness is not a breakdown, but a breakthrough? Many of us suffer from the absence of madness in our lives. Frenetic and upright, we take ourselves too seriously, trying so hard to conform to a world which promotes workaholism, efficiency, and productivity that we might as well be cogs in a machine. A world obsessed with order and seemingly absurd rules. We smile at our phones, rush through traffic, chase the next achievement, and call it sanity. But deep inside, many of us feel it, a quiet scream, a desire to run barefoot through the rain, to cry in public, to burn the script and start again. Every time you get the urge to laugh loudly at a funeral, or feel the absurdity of paying bills while planets spin in the void, the madman whispers. He is the part of you that knows all order is temporary, all meaning a fragile spell. As William Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. Forgetting that playfulness is a basic human need, we wonder why we so easily become miserable and exhausted, losing all capacity for spontaneity, authenticity, and passion. The antidote to this would be to give the madman archetype some space in our lives. To be in balance, and not become excessively insane and irresponsible, we need to develop the archetype of the sage, who, despite being wise, recognizes the limits of his knowledge and can laugh at himself every now and then. Archetypes are not part of a mechanical system, but pieces of life itself, images that are integrally connected to the living individual by the bridge of the emotions. However, aligning oneself too closely with these archetypes can lead to psychological imbalance, fostering delusions of grandeur, megalomania, and ultimately self-destruction. The character of the madman is complex, and various characteristics have been attributed to the madman: that he is insane, inarticulate, unable to conform to the conventional standards of behavior, and that he has a natural simplicity and innocence of heart with no sense of reasoning. The word mad is the Latin insania, meaning foolish or extremely stupid. Extended to people, it implies an empty-headed person with insubstantial thoughts. In 1511, Erasmus published In Praise of Folly, which became hugely popular and is a profoundly penetrating examination of the madman in Western literature. In it, Folly, the goddess of foolishness and insanity, introduces herself and does what no one dares. She praises herself. Because life, she says, without foolishness would be unbearable. Folly mocks kings, priests, scholars, even the church itself. And yet, people found the work amusing, even those she criticized, because somewhere deep down, they knew she was right. When there's an uncomfortable truth that needs to be spoken, and those in power are afraid to speak about it, it is usually the fool, the insane, and the madman who steps in. There is something heroic about this. It is the fool who speaks a truth nobody else dares to utter, and this brings instant relief, because people know it has to be said. We call the madman irrational, yet we fall in love irrationally. We build friendships on blind spots. We marry without full understanding. We forgive those we shouldn't. All of this is insane, and all of it is deeply human. Folly compares philosophers to theater critics who unmask the characters on stage and ruin the actor's performance. They are annoying and boring. The madman seems to be infinitely freer and happier than those who are burdened by wisdom. They are the life of the party. The madman always speaks the truth because he lacks the wisdom to craft lies and seeks to manipulate others. In the Middle Ages, Europe cast its madmen onto ships of fools, floating prisons where society's undesirables were exiled. This ship sailed far away to nowhere, but if you were to look closely, these madmen were free. They saw the ships not as prisons, but a freedom ark. They floated past villages where peasants starved under feudal lords. Who was truly imprisoned? The madman laughing at the sky, or the serf bowing to a crown? The philosophers, buried in books and theories, think they are wise. They write for 10 years so that a few other intellectuals over a century will read their book and think very highly of it. He peels away illusions, thinking he's doing us a favor, like a critic who ruins a play. But the archetypal madman is different. He doesn't explain, he experiences. He plays, he laughs, he dances in the absurdity of life. And somehow in his madness, there's truth. The madman tells it like it is, not because he's clever, but because he doesn't care to lie. He lives freely, not because he's rebellious, but because he doesn't wish to conform. In this way, our inner madman isn't the absence of wisdom. He's a different kind of wisdom. A wisdom of the heart, not the head. A truth that lives in laughter, in play, in simplicity. As Carl Jung wrote, madness is not the result of darkness, but of too much light. In essence, there is nothing that can make life happier than the joy that accompanies laughter and play. Madness is not merely universal, but necessary and even desirable to humanity. To be a person is nothing other than to play the insane, and to acknowledge this very fact is the highest form of wisdom. As Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky writes, the wisest of all, in my opinion, is he who can, if only once a month, call himself a fool, a faculty unheard of nowadays. In literature, wise characters sometimes depict insanity, and madmen express wisdom. The madman represents a nostalgic return to a simpler way of life, a wisdom that comes not from the mind but from the heart. Sometimes the down-to-earth and simple-minded, in their purity of heart, can penetrate to profounder truths than those encumbered with learning and convention. In the same way, we sometimes sense a more resonant truth in popular proverbs than in rational exposition. The madman is able to have a sense of humor, even in difficult situations, which radiates hope in others. In a tense atmosphere, the person who is hurt takes the risk to make a joke, even if it means making a fool of himself, not just to set himself at ease, but also to bring relief to others. When a person acts like a fool through some kind of outward action, it is immediately apparent to the audience. The madman, the fool, and the clown share similar traits. They are sources of humor, inevitably eliciting laughter, serving as catalysts for comic catharsis. However, they also express a duality, folly and non-folly, order and disorder. What may seem like a joke can in fact be a warning. Danish theologian and philosopher Søren Kierkegaard writes, "A fire broke out backstage in a theater. The clown came out to warn the public. They thought it was a joke and applauded. He repeated it. The acclaim was even greater." I think that's just how the world will come to an end. To general applause from wits who believe it's a joke. Clowns can bring a sense of awareness to what is going on in the world and where we are headed. Many of them, however, come from a place of tragedy. The contradictory association between comedy and mental disorders, such as depression and anxiety, is known as the sad clown paradox, where comedy can act as a defense mechanism to remove suppressed feelings of rage and aggression. People may respond with laughter at the clown, yet harbor feelings of pity, fear, or repulsion, evoking ambivalent reactions. Some people, in fact, suffer from coulrophobia, the overwhelming fear of clowns. In this day and age, clowns are a constant source of horror in books and movies. Perhaps this is because the modern clown's role is always the same, to entertain others by being the subject of laughter, and he is not always successful at it. The clown has to sacrifice his well-being by always having to put on the same face and play the same character. This one-sidedness can take its toll mentally, and the clown slowly becomes enveloped by his shadow, the dark side of his personality. The evil clown archetype is best portrayed in the Joker, one of the most recognizable villain characters in popular culture. In medieval theater, clowns would not only make spectators laugh, but sometimes also snatch them off with them into a hellmouth, the entrance of hell envisaged as the gaping mouth of a monster, which scared the audiences. Thus, their light and dark sides were balanced. In medieval times, the court jester's job was to entertain the aristocracy in a wide variety of ways: music, storytelling, satire, comedy, or juggling and acrobatics. It was believed that keeping a madman on the premises warded off the evil eye. This is no antiquated superstition. It represents a psychological truth of enduring value. It is usually a good idea to place the madman out front, where we can keep an eye on him. We must make room for the renegade factor in ourselves and admit him to our inner court, where he can bring us fresh ideas and new energy. Without the madman's blunt observations and playfulness, our inner landscape might become a sterile wasteland. During the Middle Ages, the Feast of Fools would be celebrated by the lower clergy on New Year's Day. To ensure society against unexpected uprisings of latent destructive urges, all conventions were temporarily suspended. The natural order of things was turned upside down. Sacred rituals were parodied in obscene fashion. Church authorities were ridiculed, and all underdogs were allowed to give vent to year-long repressions of hostility, lust, and rebellion. These blasphemous celebrations were eventually driven underground by the church. The madman also had an important role in the royal court and was given permission by the king to speak the truth. Both an insider and outsider, the madman occupied a peculiar place at court as the one person able to ridicule the very person he served. Anyone who dares to challenge orders or the status quo is considered insane by those who are too afraid to speak out and would never risk their reputation by being authentic. And because he was dismissed as insane, his words were strangely tolerated. To reflect his special role, the madman often mirrored the very society that rejected him with broken symbols and wild expressions, torn robes instead of suits, ash on his face instead of medals. Because of their close relation to the king, jesters were free from punishment and allowed to speak without fear. Nevertheless, some of them went too far and were beheaded. Madmen represent values which are rejected by the group because they oppose social norms and rules. They are seen as incompetent, frequently ostracized for their rebelliousness, and are thus social misfits. However, every group must have such a figure because they are agents of change, and the liveliness of culture require that there be space for figures whose function is to uncover and disrupt the very things that cultures are based on. Court jesters usually had some sort of physical deformity. They came from poor families and were financial burdens, but because of their unusual bodies, they were used as natural fools to create amusement. Deformities were looked upon as a special mark of the Lord, so fools, clowns, dwarfs, hunchbacks, and the like were often chosen to be clowns in royal houses. Dwarfs were particularly valued and resided in many royal courts, being frequently delivered as gifts to fellow royal members. They stood next to the king, who would then appear much larger, enhancing his powerful position. These maimed ones proved to be human beings of unusual depth and wisdom. Excluded by their physical handicaps from the activities and interests of the average person, through their loneliness and suffering, these people were forced to discover resources within themselves. In Shakespeare's tragedy, King Lear, the king's relationship with the insane is one of friendship and dependency. When the king is left with his knights, he is a terribly lonely figure and keeps asking where the fool is. The king wants the fool to accompany him everywhere, acting as his alter ego. The fool can be expected to reverse relationships between those dominant and those subservient, as he is placed in the paradoxical position of virtual outlawry, combined with utter dependence on the support of the social group to which he belongs. Shakespearean fools, just like the madman and jesters of the time, use their wits to outdo people of higher social standing, but their characteristics are exaggerated for theatrical effect. In his novel, The Idiot, Dostoevsky explores the madman's psychology in a very beautiful perspective. He portrays the ideal man, a positively beautiful individual, in a morally corrupted and decayed world. The protagonist, Prince Mishkin, returns to Russia after spending time in a Swiss sanatorium receiving treatment for epilepsy and idiocy, until the 20th century an actual medical term for neurological disorders. Starting with the train ride to St. Petersburg, he is thrown headfirst into the corruptness of society. The character appears different from other virtuous fools in fiction by emphasizing innocence rather than comicality. Dostoevsky writes, first of all, this prince is mad or insane, and secondly, he is a fool, knows nothing of the world, and has no place in it. Mishkin's open-heartedness, innocence, and lack of social experience is an instrument of satire, standing in sharp contrast to the corrupted, cold, money-hungry, manipulative, and egocentric society he finds himself in. The prince is frank, open, and unable to hide his true feelings behind a persona in order to impress others. He says what is on his mind, regardless of the social setting. This leads people to call him mad and insane, even though he has deep insights about human nature and what it means to be a true Christian. The antithesis of Mishkin is Ippolit, a young atheist and nihilist in the final stages of tuberculosis and near death. He loses his will to live and rebels against society, nature, and God, and famously states, "It is better to be unhappy and know the worst than to be happy in a fool's paradise." Prince Mishkin, on the other hand, does not understand why someone would choose to be unhappy. Instead of philosophizing, the prince spends a considerable time with sinners, serving as their moral and spiritual guide. It is the small acts of kindness that truly matter in the world. Redemption is a key theme in the novel, to save the soul from the state of sinfulness through humility and compassion. In the most popular line of the book, Dostoevsky writes, "The prince assures us that beauty will save the world." In many fairy tales we see three brothers, the youngest being a simpleton whom everybody laughs at, but it is always this idiot who becomes the hero in the story. He is the foolhardy brother who rushes in where angels fear to tread, and by doing so wins the hand of the princess and her kingdom. The fool seems to possess magical powers and has Lady Luck on his side. His spontaneous approach to life combines wisdom, madness, and folly. When he mixes these ingredients in the right proportions, the results are miraculous. But when there is one-sidedness, everything can end up in a sticky mess. In ancient cultures, madness was frequently intertwined with divinity. The Greeks revered Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy, who epitomized the fine line between inspiration and insanity. His followers, in their frenzied states, were believed to be possessed by divine madness, granting them insights beyond ordinary comprehension. This concept, known as theomania, suggested that such madness was a gift from the gods, offering profound revelations. Similarly, in Norse mythology, Odin's quest for wisdom led him to sacrifice himself on Yggdrasil, the world tree. For 9 days and nights, he hung between life and death, a self-imposed ordeal that bestowed upon him unparalleled knowledge. This narrative underscores the notion that profound understanding often demands a departure from conventional sanity. Throughout history, the madman has surfaced in various cultural narratives, embodying the tension between societal norms and individual authenticity. In literature, characters like Prince Mishkin in Dostoevsky's The Idiot are portrayed as possessing an innocence and honesty that starkly contrast with the corruption around them. Their perceived madness serves as a critique of societal values, challenging readers to reconsider the boundaries of sanity. In modern cinema, the Joker stands as a testament to the madman's enduring allure. His chaotic actions and disdain for societal structures expose underlying hypocrisies, compelling audiences to confront uncomfortable truths about order and disorder. The Joker's character study reveals how madness can be both a destructive force and a lens through which societal flaws are magnified. Carl Jung's exploration of the psyche introduced the concept of the shadow, the unconscious repository of repressed weaknesses and instincts. The madman embodies this shadow, acting out the suppressed desires and fears of the collective. By confronting the madman, individuals and societies are forced to face aspects of themselves they'd rather ignore. This confrontation, though unsettling, is essential for achieving self-awareness and balance. In various spiritual traditions, madness is not merely a state of disorder, but a transformative journey. The Sufi notion of the holy fool exemplifies this, where individuals, through their unconventional behavior and disregard for social norms, attain a closeness to the divine that eludes the rational mind. Their madness becomes a form of wisdom, challenging the status quo and revealing deeper truths. The madman archetype serves as a powerful symbol of the delicate balance between order and chaos, sanity and insanity. By examining this figure through myths, literature, and psychological theories, we gain insight into the complexities of the human experience. Embracing the lessons of the madman encourages us to confront our own shadows, question societal constructs, and recognize that sometimes what is deemed madness may indeed be profound wisdom in disguise.